Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. It's Colin. And Rolling Stone magazine just released their 100 greatest punk albums of all time list. And I have some thoughts. Rolling Stone, one of the most famous and well established music publications in the world, they like to do lists. And if you are familiar with my channel, you know I also like to do lists. I've read a lot of Rolling Stone lists over the years, and I gotta say, I disagree with a lot of their takes. So we're gonna see what this one has in store for us. I Full disclosure, I have seen the top 80, so 100 through 21. But I haven't seen the top 20 yet. I did kind of want to react to the top 20 live so you guys can see like my honest thoughts, my honest opinions. I do have some thoughts about 100 through 21 though, and there's a couple albums I do want to point out. So I'm going to briefly go over a few of the albums that I want to talk about in the 100 to 21, and then we'll go through the top 20 and I'll give you my thoughts on those. So yeah, without further ado, let's see what Rolling Stone thinks are the greatest punk albums of all time. All right, so the first album I want to talk about is Refuse the Shape of Punk to Come. This is, in my opinion, like one of the greatest hardcore albums of all time. I do think it's a little too low on this list. I think it needs to be higher. 96 just feels a little criminal, but I'm glad that it's acknowledged. I'm glad that it's on the list. It is one that I was really hoping to see. Coming in number 90, we've got The Damned, 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 Damned. I think this is criminal that this is this high or this low on the list. I feel like it needs to be higher. It's easily a top 50 punk album of all time, and the fact that it's on number 90 is kind of wild to me. Great to see pop punk get some love, but again, Dude Ranch, which is my favorite Blink 182 album, I think this needs to be higher. It is arguably one of the best pop punk albums of all time. And considering like some of the stuff that's ahead of this, if we're talking about like not true punk albums, but punk adjacent albums, because there's a lot of punk adjacent albums on this list, this absolutely needs to be higher than 83. I'm a huge Blondie fan, but again, I don't consider them punk. Like, they've got punk elements. They are more art rock to me, more sort of garage, definitely more new wave as like kind of what they were going into. So then there's a few new wave albums here that again I don't feel like belong on a best punk list. But you can certainly argue that there's a lot of punk elements, especially to this album. But again, as much as I love Blondie, I don't think they've got a place being on this list. Okay, this right here is fucking criminal. This is, in my opinion, this is my favorite punk album of all time. I think it's arguably one of the best punk albums of all time. To have this at 68, especially with some of the shit that comes after this, is fucking wild to me. Should be objectively top 10. The fact that this is not top 10, it kind of just goes to show how bullshit some of the albums are that they've like put in their like the high tiers of the rankings for this list. I mean, I don't think anyone expected the people at fucking Rolling Stone to really know punk rock, but like to put this album at 68, not even the top 50, is absolutely fucking insane. This should just invalidate the entire list right here. Just this being this fucking low. Like I am actually upset about this. This is why I'm very curious what's in the top 20 if this is fucking 68. Absolutely wild. At 61, we've got Against Me, Transgender Dysphoria Blues. I'm grateful to see some Against Me here. This is not the album that I would have thought of if we're talking about Against Me albums. Honestly, probably would have done New Wave, just like for Thrash Unreal and a few of the other songs on that album. But again, always stoked to see some Against Me, and I'm happy they're getting some love here. There's a few omissions on this list I'm gonna talk about later, and I was kind of worried that they might have been one of them, but I'm glad that they're not. Okay, Devo, not a punk album. I'm sorry. Like, they've got some punk elements. Don't get me wrong. I love this album. I fucking love this album. They certainly have some punk elements to it, but this is a new wave album. This is not a punk album and should not be on this list. The Pogues, Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash. Again, folk punk, Irish punk, but like more heavy, like Irish folk rock than anything else. Love this album. Absolutely incredible album. 52 does feel a bit low for it, especially for like what it contributed to the sort of like folk punk scene. But I'm glad that it's on here. I'm really happy that the Pogues weren't overlooked. And if you're gonna do a Pogues album, this is certainly the one to do. The Fall Hex Education Hour. Again, I don't feel like this is a punk album. There's a lot of shit in this album. It's a fantastic album. I did a video about it. I think it was, one of my favorite albums the year that it came out in 1982. Absolutely incredible, chaotic album. It's got a lot going on with it. You've got some new wave, you got some post punk. You definitely have, again, some punk elements, there's some garage elements, there's some noise rock elements, but I would not put it on a list of like punk rock albums. Again, fantastic album, absolutely love it, but it's a little surprising to find it on this list. Similarly, right after that is Fever to Tell by Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Again, I fucking love this album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. I don't consider it a punk album. They definitely have punk elements, more so on this than they ever did the rest of their career. I find it more of like a garage rock album. They definitely have like some just sort of chaotic energy. They bring some punk to this album for sure. But again, I don't view it as a straight up punk album, which clearly a lot of these albums are not like straight up punk albums, but this one is a little surprising to find on this list. But again, I adore this album. It's one of my favorites of all time. So like I'm not upset that it's on here. But like to put all of this shit over Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables on a punk album list is fucking criminal. And then we have Against the Grain by Bad Religion. I'm pretty sure this is the only Bad Religion album up until the top 20, and I would be surprised if they had another Bad Religion album in the top 20. This is not necessarily the one that I would pick, but again, I'm glad to see Bad Religion's on here. You've got to give some love to the grandfathers of punk. But again, at 45, having Bad Religion at 45, like, are there really 44 better albums than anything Bad Religion's ever put out in their career? I'm not 100% sure. Number 42 is a pretty new one with Mannequin Pussy Patience. I like this album. I like this album a lot. It definitely is like a modern Riot Girl. It definitely's got a lot of the punk energy to it. But again, like putting this ahead of some of the albums I've talked about, even some of the other albums that I didn't go over, it feels a little disrespectful to me for like the shit that led to this album. But not a bad choice. Still a great album. If you haven't listened to it, definitely go check it out. Turnstile Glow On at 39, again, a newer album. It's a great album. It's a hardcore album. It's got some other elements to it. Would I put it on a fucking best punk album list? I don't know. I don't feel like it. I mean, if we're talking about like hardcore, modern hardcore, sure. This just doesn't feel. I don't know. It doesn't really feel like it belongs on this list. Yes, there's definitely some hardcore punk elements in it, but like again, putting this over Fresh Fruit, putting this over some of the other shit that came before, like putting this over The Damned, putting this over Bad Religion, I just don't know. The Misfits at 35. There better be a fucking Misfits album in the top 20. Because this is ridiculous. If this is the highest that they get, like the best placement that they get. This is not necessarily the album that I would have gone with. Again, I think I've been on record in my personal top 5 punk albums video. I talk about how Wolf's Blood AD is my favorite. Earth AD Wolf's Blood is my favorite Misfits album. I think it's their most true punk album. I do think it's their best album. But of course, you got to have Misfits on here. But I will be a little disappointed if this is the only Misfits album that's on here. Velvet Underground, White Light, White Heat. Again, it's not a punk album. There's elements that went on to shape punk for sure. There's a lot of arguments to be made that it's the first like garage rock album, that it's like one of the first indie rock albums. It's clearly a very influential album. I do prefer this album over the Andy Warhol album, the Nico album. I think this is their best album. But yeah, I don't consider this punk. Again, it's one of the things that led to punk, but like I don't feel like it belongs on this list. And there's a few other times I'm going to say that moving forward. Speaking of that, Unknown Pleasures. Again, it's I don't know, man. I don't feel like this belongs on a punk album list. This is post punk at its finest. This shaped post punk. This is one of the greatest fucking albums ever made. But like, is it a punk album? Is it a true punk album that belongs on the best punk albums of all time? I don't think so. I mean, you can disagree with me if you want. I don't feel like this should be on this list. Again, especially over fucking Dead Kennedys. Like I'm not gonna let that go. but this in particular definitely feels um wrong to have on this list. Again, it's not a punk album, it's post-punk, which is a distinctly different genre in my mind, but clearly I don't work at Rolling Stone. This one I'm actually pretty pleased with. I would have placed this higher. I do think Milo Goes to College is one of the best fucking punk albums of all time. It like set the blueprint for pop punk in my opinion. I've talked at length about how much I love this fucking album, how much I've been getting back into it recently. This is a fucking masterpiece of an album. I think it should be higher. I think it should at least be top 20. But considering like the placement they've put some shit on this list, they could have easily have put this one way up at fucking, like 80 or something, and I'm glad that they didn't, because this is a masterpiece of an album. Shocked that this is not in the top 20, honestly. This is like one of the fucking just foundations for hardcore. I'm sure they've got Black Flag over this album, but I do think this is better than anything Black Flag put out. So yeah, I'm a little surprised that this is only 22. But again, considering some of the stuff that they've put higher up on those lists, I feel like it could have gone higher, and I'm glad that it's not. And again, we're gonna stop here before we get into the top 20. Television, Marquee Moon. It's a fantastic album, arguably one of the best post-punk albums ever. Art rock album. There's definitely punk elements to it, but I just don't consider it on a whole a punk album. I don't really think it belongs on this list. Again, especially like there was some of the omissions that I'll talk about at the end of this. It's really surprising that you've got so much post-punk on here, you've got so much new wave on here, you've got so much art rock on here, stuff that is certainly punk adjacent, but I just, if you're gonna omit some of the other shit that's not on this list, I'm like really surprised that this is on here. All right, so with that, let's get into the top 20 again. All of this I'd seen up to this point, so I don't know what's in the top 20. So we're gonna go through each album in the top 20, and we'll see what we get. So after Television, Marquee Moon, we have Dookie by Green Day. Look, I don't talk a lot about Green Day on this channel, but people that know me knows that I don't love Green Day. I know they've got a following. I know that they're influential. I know they kicked off like the 90s era of pop punk. And if you're going to do a Green Day album, this is certainly the correct one to do. To put this over Dead Kennedys, to put this over The Damned, put this, like, I didn't touch on it, but like put it over Rancid. Like there's just the Bad Religion. Like I don't get it. I don't see it. It's a great album. It's probably the only album of theirs I actually like listening to. But at number 20, like I feel like this should be further back, and there should be other albums. And there's like, put this over fucking Milo, put this over Minor Threat. Like that upsets me more than anything else, of just like this being where it is. Yeah, but I get it. Like this is a very endearing album. It always seems to end up on best of lists when we're talking about stuff like this. It's never really done it for me. And certainly the rest of their discography never has. All right, number 19, Bikini Kill, Reject All Americans. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can see this one for sure. Bikini Kill, one of the most important bands in the Riot Grrrl movement, and this is a fantastic album. It's definitely got the aggression, the anger, the core elements of punk. I'm not mad with this being where it is. It's not necessarily my go-to album from this era for like the Riot Grrrl movement. I don't think it's necessarily my go-to like Bikini Kill album, but it is very, very good. And I'm not upset with this being where it is on this list. All right, number 18, Buzzcocks, Singles Going Steady. Okay, thank you. I love the Buzzcocks. This album is fantastic. I was worried we weren't going to see any Buzzcocks, and I was going to be very, very upset, which leads me to believe that there might be some other groups that I thought were omitted that may not be. They may be here in the top 20. But yeah, this is such a good fucking album. Go listen to it if you haven't. It's probably one of my favorite like 70s era punk albums, and it's certainly well deserving of its placement in the top 20. And Bad Brains. Okay, so thank God this is fucking on here. I would be literally livid if this album wasn't on here. But at 17, like this is top 10. This is arguably a top 10 punk album of all time. This is, in my opinion, one of the greatest hardcore albums of all time. This is they fuse other genres in here too, so I guess you could make the argument this isn't just like just a punk album. Like there's so many other elements to this. There's fucking reggae. There's like again jazz fusion. There's fucking new wave elements to this. It's so catchy. It's so aggressive. It's so fun. 17 again. It's in the top 20, but I feel like this should be top 10. I feel like this album is well loved and well deserved enough that like objectively, even the people at fucking Rolling Stone who generally don't know what they're talking about with these lists should have put this in the top 10. Certainly over Gang of Four. Again, like this is, I don't know. It's not a punk album, but again, it feels more like a new wave album. It feels like they're leaning more into that. I don't I don't hate this being on here as much as I do some of the other like truly new wave albums that they've had on here. Like we haven't seen any fucking B-52s yet, which I'm hoping is not on here as much as I love B-52s, but like the fact that they've got some other stuff on here, I can see it. But again, this as much as this does borrow from punk and like lean towards punk at certain times, I don't necessarily feel like it needs to be on this list or at least this high. Just because I don't feel like it's enough of a punk album to be at number 16. New York Dolls, New York Dolls. Yeah, fair enough. Again, this feels like that era of sort of like again like proto punk, like pre punk. There's a lot of elements to it for sure. This to me feels more of like a garage rock album, but again, there was a lot of similarities between them in like the early to mid 70s. It's undeniable the influence this album had. The songwriting, the structure, the chord progression, like it's definitely you can hear all the roots of punk here. So I'm not mad about this placement. I've got a feeling that a lot of what we're gonna see moving forward and specifically in like the top 10 is going to be like older stuff from like the 70s, just considering this is Rolling Stone. I feel like they always gravitate towards some of that stuff. They like to see like the origins of the genre rather than like some of the defining pieces. But yeah, fair enough. Like New York Dolls, it's a fantastic album. I'm not mad about it being here. X Los Angeles again. X like I didn't get into this album until pretty late, but it is a fantastic album. Definitely deserves to be in the top 20. Again, I'm kind of surprised it's not in the top 10. This one is usually regarded as like one of the best, one of the Godfathers, one of the fucking defining albums in punk, and so yeah, it's interesting that it's not in the top 10. But again, I figured it was going to be pretty high. This is a fantastic album, and yeah, this the placement of this at number 14 does make me very curious as to what the top 10 are going to be. Because if this doesn't make the top 10, I don't know what did. There's obviously like there's some albums I'm thinking of that are probably definitely there. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised on this one, but not being in the top 10. All right, Husker Du at number 13 with Zen Arcade. Yeah, this is a fantastic album. They've got hardcore elements. They've got some like melodic elements here. This is a great album. Again, I don't think this one quite deserves to be in top 10. I think 13 is actually a pretty good place for this. If I were to do like a top 20, this would probably be somewhere around like 14 or 15. So like I'm not mad at 13. This is probably right around the same place I would place it. Bob Mold is fantastic, and yeah, this is a fantastic album. And if you haven't listened to it, definitely go check it out. Okay, at number 12, we have Patti Smith Horses. Look, before I say something that's gonna get me fucking canceled by like music fans, this is a fantastic album. I actually just re-listened to this album like not too long ago. It's got punk elements for sure, and like it's hard to argue that Patti Smith wasn't right in the thick of the punk scene in the mid 70s in New York. But this is an art rock album to me. There's so much about this that goes beyond the scope of punk, where like they do have a lot of elements, and it's easy to make the argument that this is like one of the foundation stones for punk in like the mid 70s. But like there's like the poetry aspect of it, the avant-garde like expressionism throughout it. It feels like it moves beyond punk again into like people call it like art punk. To me it feels more just like art rock, but like yeah, I'm not mad about this being here. This is one of the albums I kind of expected because it is regarded as one of the best albums of all time, and I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. It doesn't feel like a true enough punk album to be this high, but I'm not inherently surprised by its placement. It feels like this is kind of an easy answer whenever someone's like, "Oh, what's one of the best, most defining punk albums of all time?" They say Horses, and then you listen to Horses, you're like, "Yeah, it's a fantastic album, but like, is it really at its core a punk album?" And I think there's an argument to be made that for yes, and I think there's also certainly an argument to be made for, maybe not so much. And all right, number 11 is Damaged by Black Flag. If you're gonna have a Black Flag album, this is certainly the one to have. Yeah, it's a good album. Again, I think Black Flag is very good. I don't think they're as good as Minor Threat. I don't think they're as good as Dead Kennedys. I don't think they're as good as Bad Brains. But sure, it's a great album. It's fast, it's aggressive, it's defining for hardcore. And I figured if I hadn't seen Black Flag up until this point, that they would be, if not top 10, floating around the top 10. So with that, let's get into the top 10. The Clash, London Calling. Okay, so I was wondering when we were going to see The Clash. Obviously, they were going to be on this list at some point. This was their last album that I felt like could have even been called a punk album, because they definitely went significantly more like new wave, and then like a little post punk, and then just like kind of broke the genre restrictions open with like combat rock. But there's definitely elements of this album that are still punk, even though, again, I think this album, it's more than a punk album and explores a lot of other genres, especially on the like some of the genres that they experimented more with as they, developed their next few albums. But like coming in at number 10, if this is the only Clash album, which I hope it's not, I hope the self-titled is on here. But yeah, you have to have the Clash. Like, they are iconic in defining, the 70s punk, 80s punk, and sort of like just creating the look and the scene, and obviously gaining like wide mass recognition and appeal. So yeah, I figured that London Calling would be on here. 10 is a little surprising. I kind of figured top 5, but it is what it is. Number 9. uh, uh, um, okay. Uh, I don't know about this one, guys. Okay, so first off, this is not a punk album. It's not. I will fucking argue with people to the end of my days that this is not a punk album. Nirvana has some punk influence for sure, especially on their debut album. But this album, like, it's grunge, and it's yeah, there's some aggressiveness to it. Yeah, there's some punk elements to it. But this is not a punk album. This does not belong on this list. It does not belong at fucking number 9, and it doesn't even belong on like the best Nirvana album list, because In Utero is a better album. Yeah, this makes no goddamn sense. This is Rolling Stone being fucking dumb. Um, Still a great album. Don't get me wrong. Like, I do genuinely enjoy Nevermind, but it's not a punk album. It should not be on the fucking top 100 punk album list. There's punk elements of it for sure. It's not even their most punk album, but like, get it off this fucking list. Yeah, this, at a bare minimum, this is where fucking Fresh Fruit and For Rotting Vegetables should be. This actually pisses me off. That this is here at number 9 and Fresh Fruits is at fucking 68. That's wild. That's absolutely wild. Let's just move on before I get even more upset. All right, The Stooges, Funhouse. Again, I feel very similarly to this as I do to like the Velvet Underground. Like, yeah, there's elements for sure of punk. There's an argument to be made this is like the first real punk album, but even then, like, this feels more garage rock. It's more proto punk. Like, there's elements in this for sure that would like go on to define what punk rock would become. But I don't feel like this is a true enough punk album to be number 8. But it's also like, I can see the argument that like punk would not exist without this album, so it's hard to figure out where else I would put it. Again, I'm not as upset with this one as I don't think I'm going to be as upset as I will be with the fucking Nevermind placement. But yeah, I get it. Like, sure, this is always in those conversations, but it still doesn't truly feel like a punk album to me, despite Iggy Pop being one of the most like influential punk frontmen of all time. I feel like that came a little after this album. And here's our obligatory Nevermind the Bollocks placement. Look, I'm certainly Not alone in this opinion, but it does feel like it's not the most popular opinion. I don't like the fucking Sex Pistols. They're industry plants. They were created to fucking sell clothing, which to me is like the least punk thing ever. Sure, you can argue their influence. You can argue their impact on the scene as far as the aesthetics goes. Every single person in this fucking band was a piece of shit. Johnny Lydon is still a piece of shit. The music is okay. I think there's a lot of other bands that have done this style better. I think this album is incredibly overrated. I'm not surprised that it's in the top 10 because it's the fucking gimme answer. There's so many people like, yeah, this is the fucking, Mount Rushmore of punk albums, but I just I don't feel it. Again, I'm not surprised by this placement. I'm disappointed. But like this would not be in my fucking top 20. I think it's overrated fucking industry plant bullshit. Wire, Pink Flag. Okay. Um yeah, this, you know what? I'm gonna be completely honest. This is an album that I've listened to maybe once. Not that I didn't like it. I think one of my buddies was playing it back when I was like in college, and I fucking forgot about it. And it's rarely come up since. There's been a few times that I've seen it pop up in like publication lists or just like while I'm randomly scrolling through like other music content creators lists of albums, and it's one that I definitely need to go back and listen to. I can't tell if Rolling Stone putting it number 6 is indicative of that I should go back and listen to it, or considering what else is this high up, maybe it's not that good. But yeah, let me know if you guys are big Wire fans, big Pink Flag. Maybe I'll do like a reaction to this album, because again, I think I heard it once again when I was super drunk, like in college. My buddy put it on; he had it on vinyl. And I honestly can't remember much about it, but yeah, I'll definitely have to give this one a listen again. Okay. All right. Before I say this, let me just preface this by saying I think it's hard to deny the impact that this album had. I think, for sort of like the Riot Girl scene, for the feminist movement in punk in the 90s, clearly this was a very influential, very important album. I actually listened to this again not too long ago. I want to say like a year or two ago, because I was talking with someone about Slater Kenny, and they were trying to argue that they were like the most important like female fronted punk band of all time, and I was like, they're not a fucking punk band. They may have started with like some punk roots, but they were Riot Girl, and then they got into like fucking indie and garage rock, and now they're, I don't know, the last few albums they put out have been awful in my opinion. But yeah, if you're gonna do a Slater Kenny album, this is not a bad one. It is a great album. It's a fantastic album. Number 5 though, no, this should not be in the top 50 for me. Again, I think it's a great album. I really do. But considering the placement of some other things on this list, the fact that this is top 5 is kind of wild to me. Again, it's undeniable the impact and like how important this album is, especially like from its lyrical contents, to what it did for like that scene in the 90s. But I don't think it belongs number 5. I think it should be higher up. But it's also hard to argue against its impact. And if we're going purely based off like lasting power and impact, I guess there's an argument to be made that it should be high on the list. I just don't think it should be number 5. That's kind of wild to me. All right. Okay. So we do have the Clash self-titled here at number 4. This is their most punk album. I do love this album. I think this does deserve to be in the top 5. If we're talking just straight punk, I think if we're talking like mid to late 70s era of punk, this is fantastic. This is up there with the best of them. I feel like I know what's coming after this, but I don't agree with it. I think for like the big 4 of punk bands, the Clash have always been my favorite. I think they're the most musically talented. I think they're the most influential. They're the most diverse. And this album, having 2 albums in the top 20 is deserving. I think it's well deserved. I As much as I love Combat Rock, it's not a punk album, so I'm glad it's not on here. This is their most punk album, and I'm pretty stoked to see this in number 4. I do think this is well deserved of the top 5. Wow, number 3, the Minutemen, Double Nickels on the Dime. This is a fucking killer album. It's it's got some groove to it. It's got some fucking melody to it. It's got all the structure of a good punk album, good punk songwriting. I'm kind of surprised. I'm fairly impressed actually that this is coming in number three. It's a fantastic fucking album. Definitely go listen to it. Some of just like the songwriting on here again is absolutely incredible. This Ain't No Picnics, one of my favorite fucking songs of all time, from like this era of punk. So yeah, I'm not mad about this. Men and Men at number three, fucking killer. Cool. I'm all for it. X-Ray Specs Germ Free Adolescence at number two. Oh boy. Okay, so clearly this is an influential album. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who hasn't listened to this album to not easily be able to identify why it was so influential, why it was so important. Yes, there are definitely a lot of punk elements to this album. I think it's hard to argue that it's not a punk album, but it laid the foundation for new wave, just as much as almost any other album. Having a female fronted new wave was not necessarily new at that time, but I don't think anyone did it as angry as them on this album. Again, I'm not mad that this is considered a punk album because it absolutely is. It absolutely should be on this list. Is it the second greatest punk album of all time? I don't know. I think it does deserve to be in the top 20, maybe the top 10. I probably wouldn't put it in the top 10 of like my personal favorites, but if we're talking pure objectively, like the best, objectively best albums, like yeah, I think there's an argument to be made for it being top 10. I don't know if I'd put it over the Clash debut, but I'm not mad with it being here. I think I know what number one's gonna be now, which I don't agree with. I would put most of these over number one. But let's get into number one right now, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the Ramones. Yeah. Hadn't seen this album yet. I figured it had to be number one. There was no other place that fucking Rolling Stone would have put this album. Look, I talked about this album in my top five favorite punk albums video. I think it's a good album. I think it's a great album. I think it's undeniable the influence the Ramones had. I don't think they were the first to do this sound. They maybe just did it catchier than anyone else. It was more accessible for a lot of people. I feel like it kind of brought punk more to the mainstream than almost any other album. Is it the single greatest punk album of all time? Not in my opinion. No. I probably would not even put this one in in the top 10. Do I think it deserves a place in the top 20? Of course. It's the fucking Ramones. They're fun. They're great. They're catchy. But yeah, I don't know. This is I don't think this should be considered objectively the greatest punk album of all time. I think people around their time were doing what they were doing, better, if not maybe like as commercially successful, but better. And I think people did what they did after them a lot better too. It's undeniable the influence they had, and you couldn't go anywhere without seeing a Ramones T-shirt when I was in middle school. The kids that were listening to punk, but yeah, again, I'm not surprised that this is on here. I knew that I like when I hadn't seen this album yet that it was going to be fucking number one. Um, but yeah, I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't necessarily think it's the best punk album of all time. But it's Rolling Stone. It just goes to show you that they care about fucking album sales and commercialism more than actual quality. And again, not to disparage this album because I do think it's good. I don't think it belongs to number one. But it's Rolling Stone, so there you go. All right, so there you have it. That is Rolling Stone's top 100 punk albums of all time. Yeah, I don't know. I there's some albums on there that I think deserve their spots. There's some that I clearly don't. Again, I'm just surprised that there's a lack of there's some glaring omissions in my opinion. There's no Cro-Mags, there's no Dwarves, there's no the Vandals, there's no fucking like Guttermouth, there's no AFI, which like sure you can argue that like they stopped being punk after Sing the Sorrow or even after The Art of Drowning. But like to not have The Art of Drowning on here at anywhere in like the top 100 greatest punk albums of all time is surprising. There is I feel like a pretty severe lack of pop punk in general. Like there's no MXPX, there's no fucking Mustard Plug. Like a lot of the skate punk from like the 90s, like 90s skate punk is there's just glaring emissions all over this fucking list. And I don't get it when you're taking up spots with like new wave and post punk and fucking Nirvana. But again, it's Rolling Stone. What the fuck do they know? So yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments. Let me know if you think there's some other glaring omissions that I didn't go over. I'm yeah, again, I'm not shocked by this list, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little disappointed. But I do think that they highlighted some stuff I was surprised about. And they, it's hard to argue with some of their picks being in like the top 20 for sure. But yeah, overall, I this is a fucking wild list. All right, well, thanks so much for watching, guys. And as always, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.